We are live. We are in effect. We are in effect. Salute. Peace, peace, peace. We are live. We are live. We are live. A good one tonight. Gonna get started in a second. Salute. Peace. All right, I got a good one again for tonight. The children of that old serpent, the ruling bloodlines. The ruling bloodlines. You're gonna get into it. Quite a few things to present. Probably be able to try to go through a video presentation as well. Just give it a second. I've been itching to go in on this one, so I hope it's informative for those that may have not been familiar. I hope this helps and it's informative for you. Again, all I'm doing is presenting the information, sharing the information. Leave it to you to draw your own conclusion. If you believe, praise God. If you don't, praise God. You have your liberty. You have your freedom to believe what it is that you choose to believe. So we're going to get into it. Let me open this up a little bit more. Okay. So when we hear about, I guess the more popularized or modernized term of secret societies, we hear that word the Illuminati. And when that word is mentioned, people go into a frenzy and they lose it. Theories and you can't prove this, you can't prove that. It's a hell of an imagination. The word simply just means illuminated ones, the brilliant ones. And they are brilliant and they are enlightened in all the ways of evil. And there's different families that continue these bloodlines And some of these families, they state claim that they actually go back to the Roman Caesars. And some claim that they go back as far as Babylon or Babel itself under Nimrod. And a lot of these families, they dabble in the occult and different dark sciences, different black sciences. And that word black or dark just means evil. So we're going to get into it. And this is one of the families, the Borgias or the Borgias family. So let's read about some facts in regards to this family. The Borgias, 8 facts about the tyrant family of popes and aristocrats. The Borgia family produced 2 popes, Callistus from 1378 to 1458. And I just want to state for the record that I don't necessarily agree with the dates that are given. I'm not confirming or denying that they're accurate. I don't agree with it. And Alexander the Sixth from 1431 to 1503. Lucretia from 1480 to 1519, a duchess famed for her beauty and learning, and Caesar 1475 to 1507, a leading inspiration for Machiavelli's The Prince. But this ambitious Spanish-Italian clan remains notorious 5 centuries later for their debauchery, ruthlessness, and scheming. Are all the stories true, or were they victims of anti-Spanish propaganda? Look at these 8 fiendish facts about the devilish dynasty and decide for yourself. So here's an article written by a gentleman named James Brigden. So here's one fact that he mentions. Rodrigo Borgia had such a wild party that he got a reprimand from the Pope. Born in Extiva near Valencia, Rodrigo Borgia was a career churchman and power player. He was made a cardinal in 1456 and became Pope Alexander VI in 1492. But in June 1460, he found himself on the ropes after a strongly worded letter from Pope Pius II. Rodrigo attended a garden party in Siena that was so wild and sinful that the Pope, in his complaint, exclaimed that we are more angry than we can say. So that Pope Alexander VI is also Rodrigo Borgia, who is the father of Caesar Borgia. The Pope describes, let me get it. The Pope describes it as an orgy and says that he was too embarrassed to mention the worst bits of what went on at the sexy soiree. He was shocked to learn that Rodrigo and his friends had barred all the husbands and male relatives of all the female guests from entering the garden for the bash. Plus his angry communique describes the jamboree as beyond bounds, but we'll never know exactly what happened there. Rodrigo did apologize to the Pope and admitted wrongdoing, but ultimately denied it was an orgy. So we're seeing something that's going to be prevalent with this family. As well as with all the families, these various bloodlines that are of that old serpent. And when I make that reference of that old serpent, talking about that old serpent mentioned in the Bible, known as the devil and Satan. And you'll see why. So remember the scripture of John 8:44, when the Holy King said, "You're of your father the devil, and the works of your father you will do." And how no truth was found in him, and he's known as a liar and a murderer. Not just a liar, but the father of lies. So while that definitely was directed and aimed at the religious leaders of that day, the Pharisees and Sadducees, it also applies to those that follow in those same steps, which was the reason why the king called them that in the first place. He called them devils because they were behaving as such. And it had nothing to do with the complexion of their skin. He was actually talking to people that were his same complexion, which is a dark brown. So anyway, the second point, Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, operated a pilgrim scam. So he's a scammer. He was a scammer, should I say. Let's read a little bit of it, because I got some other ones to go through and a couple of videos to give an idea, a more detailed idea of the operations of these secret families, these bloodline families. There have certainly been mixed views of Pope Alexander VI over the years. While he won praise from several of his papal successors, one 19th century historian called him a satanic priest who surrounded himself in the Vatican with harlots, sorcerers, and bravos, hitmen. He was said to have bought the papacy through bribery and amassed wealth with money-making schemes, such as selling slips of paper to sinners that formerly forgave them. Pieces. In another racket, the Pope secretly ordered that a small door be cut into a wall of St. Peter's in Rome. This door, he declared to his flock, was a secret holy door that could only be viewed once every 100 years. The Jubilee year, 1500, was conveniently one such year, and he told the pilgrims that they could now view the door for a steep fee, of course. So a scammer, a schemer, a deceiver, which is definitely attributes of that old serpent, a deceiver, a trickster, a con man, to con, to deceive. And this is not just aimed at this family. Again, there are many families, many what some people call satanic bloodlines or the papal bloodlines. There are various families. And these are the people through different names in the world today. Some of the more common names that people are familiar with, like Rothchild and Rockerfeller, they come from these families. So let's read a third fact that was mentioned. Alexander, this is the father, Pope Alexander VI of Rome, Rodrigo Borgias, the father of Caesar Borgia and Lucrezia Borgia. Alexander once insisted on sleeping with his son's would-be bride. So here we reading about adultery and a form of incest. Why I say a form of incest? Because it's not his direct blood relative, but it is someone that would be attached to his son, and that is against the moral laws of God. The Apostle Peter spoke about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 5. So let's read it. Pope Alexander was nearly 40 when he fell for the 28-year-old Venetia Decante, mother of Lucrezia and Caesar, and two of their siblings. Alexander was nearly 60 when he seduced 16-year-old Gruella Farnese, which is another family. So, fun fact, when you read this, when you go through these different families, you see it's very reminiscent to Game of Thrones. In fact, the Borgias family is loosely based off of the Lannisters. Well, the Lannisters, I said it in reverse. Excuse me, the Lannister family from Game of Thrones is loosely based off of the Borgia family. And they actually have a son named Joffrey, similar to the Joffrey that was born out of incest from the Lannister family. They were his parents, but they were also brother and sister, which you see that was something that was done a lot in these families and still done to this day as practice to keep a quote unquote pure bloodline. Alexander was 60 when he seduced 16-year-old Julia Farnese, a young married noblewoman who, after he became Pope in 1492, moved into a palace in the Vatican. Their frequent nights together earned Julia the nickname the Pope's whore. And here you have Geoffrey Borgia, the Pope's youngest son with Venetia, was due to marry Sancha of Aragon, the King of Naples' daughter, in 1494. Before the marriage deal was finalized, Sancha paid a visit to the Vatican and was invited into the chambers of both Alexander and Caesar so they could give their seal of approval. Sancha is also said to have had an affair with Giovanni Borgia, who was allegedly murdered in 1497 by his brother Caesar. So this is talking about, for those that's tuning in, going into these families, these bloodline families, or some would call them satanic bloodlines or the papal bloodlines, and looking at their characteristics to see their association with that old serpent. So we read about, go back up real quick, debauchery, orgies, and things of such, scams, deception, theft, money schemes. Now we're reading about adultery and foul dealings. Geoffrey Borgia, the Pope's youngest son with Venetia, was due to... Did I read that part? Yes, I did. All right, let's go down. Number 4, Caesar Borgia liked to use prisoners as target practice. This was the man that was used as the model and the face for who the world calls Jesus Christ during the Italian Renaissance, which basically means rebirth, to bring back what was. And this family played a major part in bringing back what was, or rebirth. One of the main things that this family did was commission images to be changed. During the Renaissance, which is why there's Renaissance art. So you have key figures from the Bible and key figures in history all made to look like this family and other families. So you see it with the image of Caesar as the false Christ. You see it with the Last Supper portrait with the Borgias family in it, posing as members of the apostleship. That's on, just little sidebars, and you can look this up yourself and see it to be true. Number 4, Caesar was handsome and a highly capable military leader and administrator, but he was also a ruthless tyrant. At the height of Caesar's power, one chronicler reported that the bodies of murdered men were fished out of the Tiber in Rome every single day. He was also reported to enjoy standing above prison courtyards in Rome and practicing his crossbow skills, picking off the inmates below. They use a similar scene in that show, The Game of Thrones, with the kid that played Joffrey with his crossbow. And let's read on. He was a fan of poetic justice too. When a satirist mocked Caesar, he had the writer's tongue cut out and nailed to his severed hand. At one grand Borgia party, a man pointed a finger at Caesar, saying nothing at all, but clearly giving a gesture of contempt. The man was hauled off to the dungeons and had his finger chopped off. So you see, just ruthless. Don't think twice to shed blood. So here's another one that tells you about an instance where he had 2 traitors twisted to death. And I will leave all the links to these articles in the description, as always, once the video is done, so you can go through it yourself, because I'm not going to go through every single one, but some key points to show the nature of this family. Let's skip to number 6. Lucrezia Borgia wore a hollow ring that acted as a poison dispenser. So this is real diabolical, evil work. Just going around with poison in a ring and slipping in somebody's drink as you offer them something. The Borgias were said to have been so disposed towards poisoning that they took as much care in preparing poisons in their cellars as they did with their fine wines. Lucrezia was said to have favored a poison known as Cantarella, a variation of arsenic. According to the tales, Lucrezia wore a hollow ring on her finger. The ring contained the prepared poison, and at banquets, she would sneakily slip the toxin into drink or food. Yeah, absolutely. Let's continue. Number 7. So murder. They're a murderous family, just dropping poison in people's drinks and in food. Number 7, the Borgias hosted a sex competition. So more debauchery, more lust, more fleshly activity, more adultery, more incest. Though some historians dispute the event, an influential contemporary chronicler, Joanne Bouchard, left a detailed account of the so-called banquet of chestnuts. According to Bouchard, on 30th October 1501, Caesar, Lucretia, and Pope Alexander hosted a sumptuous banquet in the Apostolic Palace in the Vatican. 50 honest prostitutes attended the party and danced naked with the guests after dinner. The naked courtesans then crept around on the floor on their hands and knees, moving between burning chandeliers and picking up chestnuts from the floor. Prizes were given to the guests who could have sex with a courtesan the greatest number of times. So that's not a one-time thing. That's something that happened on a regular, this type of behavior, which does definitely reflect and mirror what was going on in Rome with the Roman emperors, following the same tradition. They too were the children of that old serpent. Number 8, Lucretia Borgia was said to have incestuous relations with her brother and father. Lucretia's first husband was Italian bigwig Giovanni Sforza. They married in 1492. Now, this year pops up a lot with this family. This family played a big part in what took place in the Americas and in the Caribbean, along with another prominent family, the Cologna family. And they basically funded Columbus for the conquest. The word itself lets you know that it was war. It wasn't a discovery. It wasn't peace. It wasn't no peaceful exchange. It was war. It was a conquest. Conquerors. Conquerors don't come in peace. Lucretia's first husband was Italian bigwig Giovanni Sforza. They married in 1492, but in February 1497, Giovanni fled a plot by Caesar and Alexander to bump him off. Later that year, the Borgias successfully forced Giovanni to agree to an annulment of the marriage. The young lord got to keep the massive dowry from the Borgias, but had to sign a statement saying he was impotent. This then led and enraged Giovanni to claim that the problem with consummating the marriage was down to Lucretia carrying on with not only her father, but her brother Caesar too. Some claim that Giovanni Borgia, known as the Roman child, was the child of Lucretia, and and either her brother or her father. So this is something that was going on heavy in that family. But there's more. There's more. Let's get to it. Again, if you're here for the first time, this is being shared for those that may not be aware and never really got into it. So this would be, I guess, like a fundamental platform for them to get the basics, and then to be able to branch off and do their own research and dig deeper if whatever topic of interest that's being discussed interests you and you decide to so do. So let's get to this next one. All right. I'm not there, as I say all the time, unless it's something that by the grace of God I was able to see before anybody else, but this information is not new. This is information that has been out here already. So let's get to it. All right. Ten alleged dark facts about the mysterious Borgias family. The Borgias were a noble family from the years of the Renaissance. Although hailing originally from Spain, they rose to great power in Italy, and more than one Borgia became a Catholic pope. However, despite entrenching themselves in religion, they were known for caring little about morality. They made enemies with many powerful noble families and have been accused of nearly every depravity you can imagine. They held prostitute parties in the Apostolic Palace, which we read that in the other one. Let's read about some of it. Okay. While some of the claims about the Borgias are hard to verify, they made no effort to hide their love of wild parties. Many sources are uncertain about the details of any particular party, but some accounts claim that some very audacious ones took place right within the walls of the Apostolic Palace. Reports claim the Borgias had invited 50 prostitutes to their party and had a game after dinner where a prostitute stripped naked and collected chestnuts from the floor while weaving between candles. After this, with Caesar, Lucretia, and Pope Alexander VI allegedly looking on, they challenged the partygoers to a game where those who could have the most sex with the prostitutes would win prizes of silk clothing and other finery. It is possible some of these stories were greatly exaggerated by their enemies, but they were hardly known for being prudish about sex either. So definitely not something that is exaggerated. It is definitely something that they partook in and something that they did regularly. Caesar may have murdered his own brother, so we see the seed again of the devil, like was written in John 8:44. Year of your father the devil. He was a murderer from the beginning, talking about the first murderer, which is Cain, which is the reference that is being made. And there's a story of Caesar Borgia, the man that was used to play Jesus Christ, and all the pictures that you see, that's him right there. That's what he looked like. Murdered his own brother. So again, these links will be left. These links will be left in the description so you can go through it yourself. That's him again. That's another picture of him. Okay. So then there's some controversy with a story that was written by Machiavelli, and whether it was satirical or if it was an actual story. Again, more accusations of incest amongst the brothers and sisters. The Borgias may have been a powerful noble family who were able to hold onto control far longer than their enemies ever expected, but they were hardly the most socially respected people. There were many ugly rumors going around about them at any given time, and one of the most common was that Lucretia had slept with more than one of her brothers, especially Caesar himself. So that was something that was prominent. That's the sister Lucretia. Says she was known for poisoning people. So again, the link will be there, so you can go through it. Number 2, Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia, the father of Caesar Borgia, the one that posed as Jesus Christ, the false Christ. He gave tacit permission to enslave the natives of the New World. So he played a part. He played a part in it. He gave tacit permission. And here's what it says. During Alexander VI's reign, he signed a papal bull known as Inter Caetera, which divided up certain parts of the New World and other territories between Spain and Portugal. These areas obviously already had native people living in them, but were not yet explored by Europeans. The papal document gave future dominion of any of these unexplored areas to whichever country fell on the side of the dividing line. This papal order was supposed to ensure the two countries wouldn't fight over the New World, but it wasn't much help for the natives. So you see that. A lot of information on this family. We got more. We got more. Let me get this next one open. Peace. Peace. Absolutely. Let's continue on. Let me get this up. All right. Cunning facts about the Borgias, Italy's most scandalous family. The name Borgias is synonymous in history with treachery, hedonism, and scandal, along with the equally infamous Medicis, which is another family. These are all crime families, by the way. They're criminal families. And to get a better idea of how it was really going in these times, you can refer to that series, The Game of Thrones. Again, the Lannisters is lightly based of the Borgias family with the incest and everything that was going on, even with having a son named Joffrey. And that's one of the characters' name on the show. Along with the equally infamous Medicis, they were one of the most powerful families in Renaissance Italy, From lusty popes to poison plots, the members of House Borgia made Game of Thrones look like child's play. Watch your back to these cunning facts about the Borgias. So one fact they have is that the conniving Borgias we think of today are the tight-knit brood of Rodrigo Borgia and his chief mistress, the beautiful Venetia de Cante. Also, while having a chief mistress at all might be scandalous enough, it got more risque. Rodrigo was actually the Pope Alexander VI to be exact, and he was supposed to be devoting his life to God, not bedroom romps. So I'm going to go through in the description. And that's a portrait of the family. Was supposed to be a portrait of the family. That is Caesar Borgia, the man that plays the false Christ. So he's supposed to be the man of God, and he's just going around committing all kind of whoredoms, all kind of adultery, incest. The young Pope, kind of interesting. From a young age, Caesar Borgia was groomed to follow in his father's footsteps as a religious leader. Incredibly, Caesar was only 15 years old when he became the Bishop of Pamplona. 2 years later, he was made the Archbishop of Valencia. This is him as a child, a young man. There we go. You look familiar. For what it's worth, Caesar was a very handsome man. There are even claims that European depictions of Jesus Christ are based off his face, but these good looks hid all manner of ills. So it's not claims, it is actual facts that he is the person that was used as the model to play Jesus Christ, commissioned by his father to Italian artists during the Renaissance to put this image forth as what's holy. was righteous. What's godly. See what else. Okay. So like I said, everything will be in the description, these links, and you can go through them. This one has a lot of facts. And I really want to play a couple of video clips that I have. So again, all this will be in the description. Let me see what's next. Yeah, I'm gonna bring this one, and then I'm gonna share some information with someone that is a direct descendant from the Borgias family. They go by different names today. They go by different names today as well. The Borgias. So it says that they are known as the first crime family. So again, this will be in the description, these links. And this is fairly long. So you see there's different chapters to go through. So who's a family member? Who's a family member of this family? Who's a family member? I'm gonna get it for you right now. Bear with me 1 second. Bear with me 1 second. Get it for you right now. You'll be shocked to see and know who are descendants of some of these people. But I'm only going to go through one because, like I said, I want to get to this video. I want to get to this video clip and play that for y'all right fast. So let me just do this real quick. All right. Here we go. So who's a direct descendant of this family? The Borgias. How many of you know who this little girl is? Or at one point, little girl was. Anybody know who that is? Anybody? Let's get another one. Does anybody know who this? It's the same girl. Well, was a girl. Now is a woman. Anybody? Who? That's just a first name. What's the last name? That's just the first name. What's the last name? This is at the time a little girl. She's 9 years old, 10 years old. Actually, the first child to be featured in an adult magazine in 1976. BS. You saying this bull crap, or you saying that's the initials of her name, the letters of her first and last name? Just give it to me, guys. Yeah, that's a fact. She was only 16 in that movie. But who is it? Say the name. That's the initials. Okay. Who is it? What's her name? Say her name. Let me get another one. And then I'm going to get an article to prove what I'm saying. And then you'll see, hopefully we'll see why. There you go. There you go. Absolutely. In color. This is a little girl at the time. At the time, she's an adult woman now. But at the time, she's a little girl. And her parents allowed her to be in this adult magazine. 1976. This is not proper for a 9, 10-year-old girl, let alone 11, 12-year-old girl. I'm gonna get to the articles in a second. I got 2 more pictures to show, and then I'm gonna get to the articles and then play one of these clips. Right in the left-hand corner, upper left-hand corner, I'm sort of sexy, says model Brooke. She says model Brooke, age 9. And look at how she's dressed. This is the same picture. As you can see, you see the flower, you see the wardrobe. Shh. Yeah. Yeah. Nine years old. Yeah. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. So let's get the last one, and then I'm gonna check out, get these articles, and I'm gonna play this video. It's a child. At the time, a little girl used and displayed sexually. So let's get this article. I got a couple. Only got two, and then I'm going to get to these videos. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Those that are tuned in and tapped in tonight, salute. Let's get to this first article. Let me open this up a little bit. Okay, so this is from the Seattle Times, and this goes back to July of 2006. Brooke Shields comes from royalty, so do you. Actress Brooke Shields has a pretty impressive pedigree. Hanging on her family tree are Catherine de Medici and Lucrezia Borgia. There's other names that's mentioned, but I'm focused on that name in particular, Lucrezia Borgia, who also was tied into the Medici family. So she stakes claim to have the same blood as the Borgias and comes out of Lucrezia. And if you look at her and you look at her appearance, she has that look. She has that look. Let me get the other one, and then I'm going to get to this video. You know what? It's the same thing. It says the same thing. It's in the Washington Post, but it says the same thing. So I'm not going to even waste time on that. But let's get into this video. And I also will leave the links to these videos. Let's get to it. Give me 1 second. Let me set it up. Let me set it up real quick. All right. While you here, like, share, comment, all that. If you ain't subscribed, subscribe now. Let's get to this video.
The world is not as it seems. Beyond the veil of our everyday lives, a hidden force operates, shaping the destiny of nations and the lives of billions. This is the dominion of the black nobility, a group so powerful, so steeped in secrecy, that its very existence is a matter of whispered legend. Their influence stretches across centuries, their lineage interwoven with the rise and fall of empires. They are the puppet masters, pulling the strings of kings and queens, presidents and prime ministers. Their wealth is immeasurable, their reach boundless. This is a journey into the heart of darkness, a confrontation with the hidden hand that shapes our world. The origins of the black nobility are shrouded in mystery, their lineage obscured by layers of deliberate obfuscation. Some trace their roots back to the Roman Empire, to the ancient families who held sway over the Caesars. They operate in the shadows, their true identities hidden behind a veil of wealth and privilege. They control the flow of information through their ownership of media empires. They dictate economic policy through their grip on central banks and financial institutions. Their network of influence is vast, their resources seemingly limitless. To understand the black nobility, one must look beyond the headlines of history and delve into the shadows where true power resides. They thrive on chaos, exploiting moments of crisis to advance their own interests. Wars are their playground, revolutions their tools of manipulation. They finance both sides of conflicts, profiting from the bloodshed and instability, while shaping the world according to their grand.
That's the whole premise behind them running the world. They control both sides. When there's wars, they control everything. They have their stake in both sides.
Design. They are the ultimate social engineers, shaping our perceptions of reality and steering us towards their desired outcome. But their reign is not inevitable. As more and more people awaken to their existence, their grip on power weakens. To understand the black nobility, we must journey back to the medieval era, to the labyrinthine canals and shadowy alleyways of Venice. These families, with names like Dandolo, Contarini, and Morosini, amassed vast fortunes through their control of trade routes spanning the Mediterranean and beyond. Beneath the veneer of respectability, the Venetian elite engaged in a shadowy game of espionage, sabotage, and ruthless competition. They were the architects of a system designed to maintain their grip on power, a system that would ultimately give rise to the black nobility as we know it today. The Crusades, a series of holy wars waged between Christians and Muslims for control of the Holy Land, marked a turning point in the rise of the black nobility. They recognized the immense economic and geopolitical benefits to be gained from controlling the flow of pilgrims, goods, and information between East and West. They financed armies.
For the record, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the historical dates because they lied about time. They lied about time. They lied about a lot of history. So I don't agree with the majority of the dates that are presented.
Equipped fleets and
or so-called events that took place, that they say took place as well. A lot of that history is made up.
Forged alliances with both Christian and Muslim rulers, always positioning themselves to profit from the chaos. The Crusades ostensibly...
But the facts that's being spoken in regards to their attributes and how they operate, their character, and the way that they move is correct.
Launched to liberate the Holy Land had become a catalyst
or should I say I
for the
agree
consolidation
with 100%.
of power in the hands of a select few. As the black nobility's wealth and influence grew, they sought new avenues to solidify their power and ensure its transmission across generations. Their solution was the creation of the Fondi, a complex system of financial instruments and institutions that would lay the foundation for modern banking and finance. By lending vast sums to cash-strapped monarchs and governments, the black nobility gained leverage over their debtors, dictating policies and influencing decisions from behind the scenes. The Fondi were shrouded in secrecy, their operations hidden behind layers of shell companies and complex financial arrangements. They were the architects of a system designed to benefit themselves at the expense of the masses. For centuries, the black nobility understood a fundamental truth. Whoever controls the money supply controls the world. Their ascent to financial dominance began with their grip.
Just like whoever has control and has power controls the narrative. They're in control of what information comes out and what information is suppressed and kept back. They're able to manipulate and make up stories and events and hide the truth.
Grip on tangible assets, from the gold and silver flowing through Venice to the vast land holdings they accumulated. The shift from a gold-backed system to fiat currency, money declared as legal tender by government decree, was not some natural evolution. Central banks, ostensibly created to stabilize economies, became instruments of this grand financial experiment. The black nobility, through their control of the world's purse strings, had become the architects of a new global order, one where debt and dependence were the tools of subjugation.
The magnesium in your cabinet is not only filled with heavy metals, but it also can be making your age faster. And I'm about.
While their financial machinations shaped the material world, the black nobility recognized the potent power of belief. Religion, with its promise of salvation and its sway over the hearts and minds of millions, presented an irresistible opportunity for manipulation and control. Through carefully placed individuals within the church hierarchy, they influenced interpretations of Scripture, promoted doctrines of obedience and submission, and subtly steered the moral compass of society towards their own ends. By skillfully exploiting religious fervor, the black nobility channeled the faith and zeal of millions to serve their own geopolitical and economic ambitions. The black nobility understands the power of faith, and they have never hesitated to exploit it for their own ends. With their hands on the levers of finance and their influence woven into the fabric of faith, the black nobility turned their attention to the final pillar of control: information. They recognized that in an increasingly interconnected world, the ability to shape the narrative, to control the flow of information, was paramount to maintaining their grip on power. Their strategy was twofold. First, to infiltrate and control existing media outlets, and second, to create their own channels of communication, ensuring that the information reaching the masses aligned with their interests. This control was not always overt censorship. It was far more insidious, relying on subtle biases, the omission of inconvenient truths, and the promotion of narratives that fostered fear, division, and a sense of powerlessness among the populace. The lines between information, entertainment, and propaganda blurred, creating a carefully constructed reality where their power remained largely invisible yet pervasive. The black nobility's obsession with lineage and bloodlines is not mere aristocratic pretension. It is the bedrock of their belief system. They view themselves as inheritors of a superior bloodline, descended from gods and rulers of antiquity, destined to rule over the inferior masses. This belief, passed down through generations, fuels their sense of entitlement and their conviction that they are above the laws and conventions that govern ordinary mortals. They intermarry amongst themselves, preserving their pure bloodlines and consolidating their control over wealth and influence. To them, power is not earned, but inherited, a birthright bestowed upon them by virtue of their lineage. This belief has motivated their support for various social engineering programs throughout history, all aimed at controlling the growth and composition of the population. While the black nobility's influence is vast, one family symbolizes their power more than any other: the House of Rothchild. Their rise is a testament to their cunning, ambition, and ruthless pursuit of wealth. The Rothschild saga begins in the 18th century with Meyeramschel Rothschild, a Jewish financier from Frankfurt. He placed his 5 sons in key financial centers, across Europe, London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. This network became the foundation of a financial empire. The Rothschilds financed governments, funded wars, and manipulated markets. Their wealth and influence over Europe grew exponentially. One of their most audacious moves came during the Napoleonic Wars. Nathan Rothschild used his network to gain advanced knowledge of the Battle of Waterloo. He engaged in trades that created the illusion of a British defeat, causing a panic in the London stock market. When the dust settled, Rothschild had amassed a fortune and gained control of a significant portion of the Bank of England. This move highlighted the ruthlessness and willingness to exploit chaos that characterized the Rothschild dynasty.
Hey, so if you're interested in crypto, then pop quiz, okay? What's the easiest, safest, and most...
To the black nobility, history is not a linear progression, but a grand chessboard upon which they orchestrate events to achieve their desired outcomes. Wars, revolutions, economic booms and busts. These are not random occurrences, but carefully calculated moves designed to advance their agenda of control. Their fingerprints can be found on some of the most pivotal events of the past 2 centuries. They financed both sides of the American Revolution, ensuring the outcome served their interests regardless of who won. They fueled the French Revolution, exploiting the chaos to undermine the monarchy and advance their own agenda. Their involvement in the American Civil War is equally well documented. The Rothschilds, with their vast financial resources, played a key role in financing both the Union and the Confederacy, prolonging the conflict and reaping immense profits from the bloodshed. As the world entered the 20th century, the black nobility's machinations became even more audacious. World War I, a conflict of unprecedented scale and brutality, has long been suspected of being orchestrated to further their interests. From the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand to the financing of both sides of the conflict, evidence points to a hidden hand guiding events towards a predetermined outcome. The black nobility's modus operandi is consistent. They sow discord and division, fund both sides of conflicts, and then exploit the resulting chaos to consolidate their power and advance their agenda. Their ultimate goal is not to conquer the world outright, but to control it from the shadows, manipulating events to ensure their continued dominance. The dawn of the 21st century did not diminish the black nobility's power, it merely shifted their tactics. Today's elite navigate a world of globalized finance, interconnected economies, and instantaneous information flow. Their tools may have evolved, but their goals remain unchanged: to maintain their grip on power. Their modern-day empire is built on control over the institutions that govern our lives. Central banks, with their power to create money and dictate credit flow, are key instruments. Through these institutions, they engineer booms and busts, reward allies, and punish enemies. International organizations like the UN, IMF, and World Bank serve their agenda. Their influence extends to the heart of governments. They shape legislation, influence elections, and ensure power remains in their hands. The black nobility's obsession with bloodlines takes a dark turn in their embrace of eugenics, advocating for the improvement of the human race through selective breeding. To them, humanity is a breeding stock to be managed, ensuring the dominance of their perceived superior bloodlines. This ideology gained traction among elites who viewed the burgeoning populations of the lower classes as a threat to their power. They funded research and promoted policies targeting marginalized communities, deemed unfit to reproduce. The horrors of Nazi Germany did little to dampen the black nobility's enthusiasm for eugenics. After World War II, eugenicists found refuge.
All right, so I'm gonna stop that one. And again, the link is gonna be available in the description. I'm gonna get to this next video. Let me set it up. Let me line this up. And here we go.
The Baroque is a highly ornate and often extravagant style of architecture, music, painting, sculpture, and other arts that flourished in Europe from the early 17th until the mid-18th century. It followed the Renaissance style, with great innovations in dance appearing in the 17th century, originating at the French court under Louis XIV. And it is here that we see the first clear stylistic ancestor of classical ballet. Louis XIV was a major influence in the development and promotion of Baroque dance. Even at the age of 14, Louis was an accomplished dancer as the sun god Apollo, an image that he was to cultivate throughout his life.
Puissance, plaisir, lumière.
During the 17th century, dancing had not only a great social importance, but could also carry political importance. Although celebrating traditions with masquerade balls had been around since the 14th century and all throughout the era of the Renaissance, masked balls did not really come to Europe until the 17th century. Hiding one's identity is the theme behind wearing masks at masquerade events, and particular masquerades were for the wealthy and posh, which required an exclusive invitation to participate. There was a strict code of conduct and behavior which had to be followed, and everyone had to come in full costume. Baroque means irregular in French and is said to originate from the Portuguese word barroco, meaning imperfect pearl, like the irregular shaped pearl that was used in the jewelry of the time. Carnival of Venice is an annual festival held in Venice, Italy, that ends with the Christian celebration of Lent, 40 days before Easter, the day before Ash Wednesday. The festival is world famous for its elaborate masks and currently seems to be growing in popularity since around the 80s or 90s. However, under the rule of the Holy Roman Emperor and later Emperor of Austria, Francis II, the festival was outlawed entirely in 1797, and the use of the masks became strictly forbidden.
So how does this 61-year-old guy run circles around guys like me in their mid-30s? Well, he's definitely not cheating with dangerous injections or pills. So what's his secret? I did some research and found out some...
It reappeared gradually in the 19th century.
They definitely look creepy.
The Roman Emperor and later Emperor of Austria, Francis II, the festival was outlawed entirely in 1797, and the use of the masks became strictly forbidden. It reappeared gradually in the 19th century, but only for short periods, and usually for private feasts with rumored ritualistic activity.
Yeah, like Eyes Wide Shut. It's said that there's about 15 or 20 minutes missing from that movie that wound up having the director killed behind it because he exposed too much. So this is actual. There are actual things that have gone on that people don't believe. With groups of people that are elitists, that have power.
Activities.
Did you know Stanley Kubrick filmed his famous movie Eyes Wide Shut inside the Rothchild family's country estate?
Now, every party and gathering is not like this. But the same acts and deeds take place at those parties. What I mean by that is that this scene right here is more from a masquerade event. There's parties that's done where there's no mask and you see who's doing what with who.
Theories swirled that Kubrick made his movie about the real-life ultra elite and their secret occultic gatherings. Well, take a look at these pictures that show an actual Rothschild event from 1972. On the surface, it looks like a pretty magnificent surrealist ball, but there are clear occult references, much like the film Eyes.
So again, you see that the Rothschilds they are one of those bloodlines. So this is the type of things that they do.
Wide Shut, occult imagery is hidden throughout the night, starting with the invitations, which were written backwards. Reversal or inversion of sacred objects is typical of black magic and satanic rituals. The exterior of the Chateau de Ferrier is lit up in a moving orange light, giving it the appearance of a fiery inferno. This hat, designed by Dali, also has hidden symbolism of androgyny by having half of Mona Lisa's face. Harnessing the male and female power is important to practitioners of the left-hand path. And although Dali traditionally paints ants and grasshoppers in his paintings to evoke death, decay, and trauma, this work of art has scarab beetles, which symbolize the Egyptian mysticism of Osiris, the Sun King. This guest's costume resembles the famous painting Son of Man by Magritte. Both the apple and the eye of Horus symbolize the forbidden knowledge of Lucifer in the Garden of Eden. The hostess, Marie-Helene de Rothschild, is seen wearing a giant horned head, crying real diamond tears. Is this a representation of the sacrifice to Baphomet, who will share wealth and riches only after sacrifice? It's not exactly clear when in 1972 this party took place, but from the look of the decorations and the menu, it's definitely a fertility ritual. The dinner table serves dismembered dolls and cracked skulls. For dessert, a human sacrifice in a bed of roses. The rose, of course, is a symbol used by many secret societies, and it represents virginity, fertility, sexuality, and immortality, as well as silence and secrecy. Here's Salvador Dali, who helmed the Surrealist movement. At first, this could seem like a Surrealism party in his honor, but consider the aims of the Surrealism movement itself: to resolve the contradictory condition of dreams versus reality and allow the unconscious mind to express itself. Occult imagery is very real, and it's everywhere, in movies, television, music, and fashion. The power derived from these occult symbols and imagery is very real to the elitists that congregate in their separate reality.
So shall we burn thee once again this night?
This is footage of an area called Bohemian Grove with a ritual being conducted of a human sacrifice.
And
in California.
in the flames that eat thine effigy, we shall read the sign, Midsummer sets us free. You shall burn me once again. Not with me, Wayne. Summer sets us free.
And that is just the tip of the iceberg. The elites are riddled with perverse secret societies that are obsessed with harnessing the power of dark forces.
For over 100 years, Skull and Bones members have included a president, vice presidents, Supreme Court justices, congressmen and senators, captains of science and industry, the very best of America.
Their bar, their sword, their advisor, their better, or their advisor.
There's the public perception of the occult, and then what is actually happening. It's fantasy and folklore versus the real intangible dark power that the elite are able to harness by being practitioners of the occult. And it's this very art and imagery that we see over and over again, that it's just the expression of their dark souls.
Pretty good at. I'm gonna skip to this portion. Again, the whole link will be in the description. But I'm
psychological warfare as well. That if you read Friedrich Schiller's Ghosts here, you can be good at
others, but the oligarchical structure essentially remained the same.
The Venetians are very good at psychological warfare as well. That if you read Friedrich Schiller's Ghosts here, you can see that what you do is you pretend to be people's friends. You find out what they want, what their weakness is, and you give it to them. If they want money, you give them money. If they want sex, you arrange for that. If they want drugs, you arrange for that. Whatever it is they want, their weakness is, you feed them. And then you tell them, okay, I'm doing all this for you, and I just need these little favors. And you corrupt them. And you corrupt them until you can control them. And of course, you know what they're doing, so you can always blackmail them if they try to get out of line. But basically what controls them is the knowledge that if they don't go along with you, then they lose out on all these things they like. You know, if they play ball with you, then they become rich, they become famous, they have all of their desires sated, they get everything that they want but in a mental state which is increasingly depraved and subject to manipulation. And that's also the Venetian method, that you win by corruption. And that the thing that the empire fears most of all is an honest man who isn't corruptible because he doesn't want those things.
With their reassurance of complete maritime dominance, the Venetian oligarchy used their power over the Mediterranean to internationally centralize the control and organization of money within their financial empire. Thus, no country could produce bullion for its own use, and all currency exchange had to take place in Venice.
They are lending money to the major houses of Europe, the nations, or what passed for nations at that point, the kingdom, various kingdoms and duchies and things like that. And so they get them into debt. Now, for example, the King of England was in significant debt to the Lombard bankers, which was the Venetian banking system, and in particular to the House of Bardi. And so the king, pledged as collateral the wool production of his kingdom. And then, of course, he's going broke, and so he needs more money. So he borrows more money, and then he pledges all of the sheep as well. The key thing about this kind of debt farming, is that once you incur a debt, the debt never really goes away, because the interest rates that you have to pay, the money that you have to pay to service this debt, is such that you quit building your country and you start trying to pay your debt. And then you have to borrow more money to pay your debt because you get further behind, and then your interest rates get higher, your debt service becomes more, and you set off on a process that never really ends until everything blows up. But that's the Venetian method of control. And that method has not changed since the days of Venice.
The oligarchy proceeded to move north in search of a new capital from which to operate.
So again, the links are gonna be in the description, so you can see the whole thing yourself. That's the nature of these bloodlines. This is why I presented those two videos. To show the correlation of how these bloodlines behave. Those parties, those different debaucherous parties, orgies and sex contests and incest. That's what these bloodlines do. And still to this day, under different names. So with that, we're going to call it a wrap for tonight, come to a close. Thank you to everybody that tuned in and tapped in. There's some more bloodlines to go through with more information. And God willing, be able to go through that next week. Same time. All right. Peace, blessings, Godspeed, salute. Thank you to everybody that tapped in and tuned in. Peace.